Hi, my name's Mick, and today I'm going to talk about the Make Noise ReSynthesizer. This is the third, I think, complete system that Make Noise have released. And for me, it's the first time I've ever used a complete designed Eurorack system. I've personally kind of gone off the idea of mix and match systems. For me, it created too much anxiety. I was always second guessing my selection of modules, and things would grow and they'd be like unwieldy. Then I'd shrink back down to a focus system, but then I'd add more modules, and if you're into modular, I think you know what I mean. I kind of went from being a little bit jaded towards Eurorack to just really falling in love with it again through this system. So they call this the ReSynthesizer, and right in the center is the Spectraphon, which is the kind of the main event of this system. The Spectraphon is a spectral resynthesis synthesizer within itself. So you feed audio into it, and it then distributes that audio that you're feeding it into partials across a frequency spectrum, and then it tries to reproduce that kind of timbre that you feed into it into an audio signal. But this system also includes the morphogene, which is a sampler. So what I end up doing quite a lot is recording into the morphogene either through external or within the system itself, processing that in real time through the Spectraphon, and then processing that again into the QPass, which is their stereo filter. So there's this feeling of like capturing sound and then pushing it through these different canals, and then at the other end you get this strange reinterpretation of the sound that you fed it originally. So I've got this sound from the morphogene here, and let's see how the Spectraphon samples that. I personally really like the kind of walled garden approach of a pre-designed system. I don't feel any desire to swap any modules out or grow beyond this right now, this feels very much like an instrument to me, much in the same way as the Future Sound Systems Crick does, which I reviewed last time. I feel like performance is at the core of this, gestural performance, and human interaction is a big part of this. You got the press point, which is a tactile way of like triggering things or modulating things with your fingers. The renee is a sequencer that's just all about touch, and it's really fun with the tempi just to tap in these little rhythms. I found the renee to be a really interesting compositional tool. I've used a lot of sequencers, and the renee is a really confusing one. I've used it in the past as well, and it never really clicked with me. But again, the kind of walled garden approach of just focusing on a limited system and trusting in the design of that system means that I'm pushing into these modules that offer a bit of resistance, a bit more than I normally would, right? I found that with the renee, there's so much you can do with it. You can create very, very unique patterns and organically create these patterns and really easily mix them up and shift them around. And it's through the renee that I've found this can be a really musical instrument, and you can create like full compositions on it. Let's make some notes. Cool. So we've got a sequence here on the Y channel. This is triggering the second oscillator in the Spectraphon, and it sounds a bit mad. So let's go to the quantize page. And then let's restrain this a little bit. So let's just do this. Pretty simple. Now it's starting to sound a bit more traditionally musical. You've got the infamous snake modes, where you can see it's just scanning like this. And there's different patterns you can do. Which can add some nice variation and unpredictability to it. Obviously these snake patterns can all be, CV addressed as well. And you can also do stuff like rests, which is quite nice. There's a bunch of tricks as well, like you can send a pitch offset into these modulation inputs, which I've been doing with this. So this is a CV bus, so you send a signal into these 4 channels and it duplicates across the channel. On this side there's a voltage generator which generates negative or positive voltage, and so I've been using this as a kind of a macro control, and I've been sending that into the CV pitch offset inputs when it's configured in the configuration pages to kind of like transpose a pitch within scale. It's really cool. choice to include 2 maths is pretty fun, and I think it's a great decision. If this system only had 1 maths in there, I feel like it would be quite limited, but with 2 it's beautiful. So this is the slew generator, or the function generator rather, cycling so fast that it creates an audible pitch. Channels 2 and 3 of maths are attenuverters. You'll see that as I turn the channel up, the volume of this cycling envelope will increase. And it's called an attenuverter because you can then send negative voltage. It inverts the signal. Now these 2 channels don't have to cycle, they can be triggered. What you can also do is a mix within here. So there's a sum output here. So this is now a mix of well, all 4 channels, but what we're hearing are these 2 channels. And I'll mix in the cycling channels from the other maths as well. So there you have a quadrature sound generator. However, maths is most commonly used as a modulation source. So you get the idea. Much modulation potential to be had with maths. You've got essentially 2 mixers, 4 LFOs, you've got 4 functions or envelopes. You can have a really complex multi-stage envelope. You can have these kind of bouncing ball patterns that feed into each other and these crazy control voltage feedback loops. It's really what pushes this system into like quite experimental territory if you want to go there. To the right of X-Band, you've got the Mimeophon delay. This is a digital delay with a lot of character and a lot of features to it. Let's just generate some self noise with it. So what you hear as reverb there is actually a diffusion circuit within the delay line. So it's a nice kind of like dual effect. It's kind of a reverb, kind of a delay. Here I'm going to use maths as a mixer, and I've got 2 clock pulses going into channels 2 and 3. So this is these 2 gate signals combined to create this little rhythm. So how this works is you've got these kind of like timing zones. They're kind of like different rooms you can enter. Some are small, some are big. This is a really small room. If I tighten this. So I've got the feedback up high here, and this is my rate. So you can do, this is coupleless strong synthesis, where it's a delay line that's kind of feedbacking for a long time with a really fast delay. Let's slow down, let's move into a different time zone. And then a slower time zone. And slower again. Mimeophon is a really key sound design component to this. I'd say this is a really modern instrument. It sounds extremely kind of future. There's no way to get, your bread and butter, sawtooth, triangle, that sort of thing. You just can't do that. You've got to every time sit down and invent the waves that you're going to be manipulating. And the full stereo signal path through the sound generating and processing and mixing modules is cool as well, because all of a sudden space and spatial playfulness comes into play, which you couldn't do on the shared system before, as far as I know, or at least not to this extent. I think that the Spectraphon is a module that I've had kind of a hard time getting into. It's a bit like navigating a dark forest. You can't really see, into the woods. You have to explore and, find your way through. And I think this thing can sound like a 80s Yamaha FM synth, but also sound like some kind of crazy Auteca futuristic thing. And you can do this beautiful morphing from sine wave to an explosive, full frequency, insane sound. You don't need to have an audio input to make it work. You've got a sine output. You've got a sub output. You've got an odd output and an even output. So that is the odd output and this is the even output. It's quite nice to use this crossfader to do this, actually. You can control the sound by brightening how audible the partials are across the spectrum, and then you can slide and focus into the partial that you're looking at. Sounds great to me. The scope, the range of sounds that you can get out of this thing are extremely wide, like more than any complex oscillator that I've used before. Once you learn to push and pull it, and once you know what kind of sounds to feed into it, what sounds you want to resynthesize, then you can really find your sound within the Spectraphon, the sounds that you resonate with, more so than you can with a traditional oscillator that gives you, the sine, saw, triangle, all that stuff. So to conclude, I think this is a real 10 out of 10. This is, my instrument now going forward in terms of modular synthesis. And much like how I see people like Todd Barton or Suzanne Ciani with their bookless systems, and they've been using the similar systems for years and years, and they're still learning and discovering things through them, I think it's possible to have a similar relationship with this. The resynthesizer loves external sounds, and what I've found is that it's pushing me into wanting to use more acoustic sound, found sound, or working with instruments, and incorporating that very naturally into a modular environment, into a synthesis environment. And that to me is really exciting, because it's kind of pushing my music in a new kind of direction, which is, to be honest, the best endorsement I can make for this. Thanks.